Hi everyone, welcome to the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters. It's from me, Brent Graham, live, as always, on a Thursday night at 9 o'clock. Going to probably make a decision as to how long to carry on. I'll probably take a little bit of a break over Christmas sometime, but the rugby's not taking a break. There's loads of Northern Hemisphere action, and even the Currie Cup, I think, on Boxing Day, so maybe there's a good chance we'll just keep the show going. Anyway, we've got quite a bit of rugby to talk about tonight, not as much as I thought we would, because we've already had a cancellation of a Currie Cup game. I think one or two of the Champions Cup games are off as well, but let's catch up with the panel and see what they think. Let's introduce them first. I'll start at the top of the screen there. It's Chris Rowe at the Crow Tips on Twitter. Chris, good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. Good to be here. Looking forward to going through some games with you guys.
Excellent. And then down at the bottom, we got Thoughts on Sports. I know he's already leapt onto some of the early handicaps that he's highlighted. I know him and I are in agreement on a couple as well, so we get a bit of alignment going on the week. Neil, welcome back to the show. Good to see you, man. Is that did you have that moustache last time we spoke?
No, Brent, this is definitely a bit of a carryover from November. I'm not the greatest facial hair grower, so I sort of got to cash in where I can. I think this is good value, as the bookies would say. But no, awesome to be back. It was a bit of a nerve-wracking moment for a bit where I was going to be man alone on the show, but luckily Crow Tips joined in as a late guest. So there's a bit of a panel tonight, but yeah, welcome to the guest. We're looking forward to chatting some rugby.
Yeah,
that's it for sure. Yeah, in fact, I sort of made the decision tonight. I thought, okay, well, let's go with one because I didn't realize there was still so much rugby. I actually thought a lot of the rugby had been cancelled. And then Chris messaged me and said, "Do you still need a guest?" And I said, "Yeah, please join us because it's always good to have differing opinions." And of course, welcome to all the boys who are watching live, whether it be on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube as well. Let's hope we can find some winners. And a reminder that if you haven't yet subscribed to our newsletter, you can go down below. Our best bet will be coming out tomorrow and also obviously hitting an accumulator as well. But guys, let's get straight into it, and we'll start off with the Currie Cup. And we've only got two matches, unfortunately, to talk about, even though I see quite a few of the bookies have still got three matches priced up. And Chris, I'll start with you. Pumas up against the Free State Cheetahs. That takes place tomorrow in Nelspruit. And the current handicap line is, well, I'm on Sunbet at the moment. I've got plus 8.5 here. I know there was some 12.5 that Neil pointed out earlier in the week. CL Rugby on the Good for the Game forum was also on the Pumas plus. So there has been some movement in that direction. Have you done anything yet on this one or any further involvement from you?
Yeah, so I was also part of those discussions and unanimous on that. The plus 12 was absolute still giveaway when we saw the teams that were coming out. So I actually got it at 11 at the time. So definitely on the plus, but I was also am looking forward to the points line in this one as well. I see some of the guys have mentioned that they've seen some points at 54. I was hoping at 57, 58. I would be on it on the overs. So my bookies don't have points yet, but I'll be also certainly be looking at the overs, maybe even some Pumas if I can get around mid-20s, early mid-20s. I might be even going on some Pumas points lines there. The Cheetahs team is a bit odd. I don't know how fluid they're going to be. They're kind of on a decline. The Pumas are. I really enjoy the Pumas' attitude. So yeah, some players maybe out their depth, but they play as a team, and I think I see both teams just giving it one hell of a go, ding-dong battle with each other, having a fat go. So I see tries, I see loads of points, and I see Pumas easily covering 11 or 12.
Right, let's bring Neil in there. And Neil, I know this was one of your early fancies in the week. The moment I don't know if you'd seen that, you hadn't necessarily seen the team, but you had a good feel for what sort of team the Cheetahs would be putting out, and you said Pumas plus 12.5. By the time I sort of woke up to it, CL Rugby also pointed it out on the Good for the Game forum. There was 10.5, and now largely about 8.5. I must say my personal view is that this line could come in further still. I took a little bit of the 7-2 Pumas to win the game. Are you still very confident on your Pumas selection?
No, Brent, firmly in the Pumas camp here. I think that if you do shop around, you can definitely still get about plus 10.5 at 8 to 10. I think that's cracking value. Just to hop on the Pumas' recent performances against the Cheetahs, in the last 5 meetings between the two sides, the Pumas have covered the cap in 4 out of those 5 fixtures. I think that the only time they didn't cover the cap was in 2018 when they succumbed to, I think it was a 52-10 point loss at home. And also, I see the points line has come out at about 54.5. And anyone who knows me, once again, big unders punter here, but I always feel like you're winning the bet the whole game until maybe you could lose it at the end. And I think I'm actually leaning overs in this one here. Also, 5 meetings between the two sides. all 5 have gone over that 54.5, with the lowest point score being 55. And I know there is a flutter of rain about in Nelspruit, but once again, we've seen what happened with the Sharks Bulls last weekend when there was a bit of rain in Oversref and Morris van der Westhuizen. If these two sides can knock over a couple 3 points, you just need a couple of flurry of late tries, and that overs is in the bag. So I think that the over 54.5 is a good play. If you can get Pumas over 21.5, I think that's also a great play to go for. So that's just my thoughts so far on this.
Yeah, I must say I do like that Pumas plus as well. I must just say I quickly popped onto Hollywood, because when I did the good for the game preview, I took the plus 10.5 at Hollywood, and I see they've still got it. One thing I find with Hollywood, they're not scared about my money. That I can tell you now. And if I tip something, they keep it up there as long as possible. I think they've got a very good record against me, and they haven't moved the line at all. They still just to show you, they still plus 10.5. So you can still get that at Hollywood if you're interested. But looking at the points lines, yes, I'm kind of with you guys there. I would be very wary about going under 54.5. But if anything, I'll be looking for a Pumas overs line here. Pumas, Neil, what about 21.5 or somewhere around there?
Yeah, I didn't see that, but that sounds good. Sounds right.
Yeah, so hopefully we can get our Friday off to a good start. Then, yeah, having a look at the next game, of course, we had the Griquas against the Bulls. That has been cancelled due to COVID, unfortunately. So we then moved to the Lions against the Sharks. And this is a game where the bookies are, I would almost say, struggling to separate the sides. We've got the Lions 15-20 here. I'm looking at Sunbet at the moment, and the Sharks evens, so which relates to a very handicap of about 1.5 points, the Lions favourite. I just want to quickly pop onto the Good for the Game forum and see what I priced this game as. Oh, very close. I said Lions slight underdogs at plus 0.5 point. So it's very much where I thought. But let's start with you, Neil. Get your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, Brent, I think that bookies have got it pretty spot on. But as I've voiced in the past, whenever I get a choice game between the books and I have even a slight feeling, I always like to have a crack at it, because I always feel like maybe have a slight advantage over the books and just maybe a little bit of extra information. So with this, I'm definitely leaning Sharks at the moment. Plus 1.5 at 0.9. I just think that's probably better value than taking them at about 1-1 on the board, because we have seen a couple of draws and plays. And we know that what can happen with sort of inclement weather. I don't think it's too much worry this weekend. But just a couple background about the two sides. So obviously Sharks now with the Bulls result getting called off. So the Griquas Bulls getting a draw, so sharing 2 points. If Sharks get a bonus point victory, they can jump to the top of the table. And I'm pretty sure that that's well versed in the Sharks camp, so they'll be fully aware of this. And also another interesting stat is the Sharks have not lost to the Lions in the last 7 fixtures between Super Rugby and Currie Cup across these sides. So Sharks do have a very mobile pack, and they do generally travel while in Johannesburg. If we just start back to a couple of weeks ago when Province played the Lions in once again in a choice game, I'm fully of the opinion that the Sharks are a better side than Province. So if I'm getting them at slightly evens and similar price to what Province were, Sharks generally travel a bit better, but more mobile. They have an absolute sharpshooter in Currie Bosch, knock them over from 55, 60 out. I think Sharks will look to properly secure a victory, and I'm sure that the coaching staff will know that. So yeah, Sharks for me. I will be quite interested to see where the points come out. I would imagine it to sort of come out at a 51, 52.5 region. I would be very surprised if it does come out a bit higher than that. If it does come out a bit higher than that, I'd maybe looking at potentially at a bit of a Lions unders. I know it's probably a bit against the grain, but Sharks do play some good close-out rugby.
Yeah, no, I just going back a little bit, I think it was probably earlier this year when the Sharks played the Lions, or possibly it was last year, Super Rugby game at Ellis Park in the rain. I'll never forget. It was, I think, a Friday night or something. It was raining, and the Sharks turned on an absolutely brilliant display in beating the Lions there. So that one sticks in the mind for me. The Sharks, I was impressed with them last week against the Bulls. I was a bit worried, I'd backed the Sharks outright. Unfortunately, I was also on unders in that game, as I think a lot of us were. And it wasn't the game we were expecting, that Sharks Bulls. What was it, 32-29? But very happy when Mornay Steyn missed that final penalty, because at least I know you had taken about a 14-10 Sharks, Neil, early in the week. I think I got 12-10. So at least that sort of softened the blow of the unders for me. But the unders was my big play last week, so a bit disappointing on that one. And let's go to you, Chris, on this game, the Lions against the Sharks. Are you going to side with Neil, or you're going to go against him?
No, pretty much follow those sentiments as well. That obviously pick'em game, tough. The bookies have probably got a spot on. I mean, Lions are also super impressive last week. But then again, the cheaters, I'm not starting to feel anything for the cheaters like maybe I was thinking. So maybe that was a little bit of a inflated performance as well. But the Sharks were impressive last week. The Bulls are great. It was a great game. The Sharks stuck it out. I think, I'm coming back. We pointed out last week was a big thing. And Thomas du Toit. It's a pity, obviously, du Toit is out because I think he's really massive for them. But I don't think with JJ van der Merwe, he should bring some beef back there. And Dylan Richardson's playing out of his skin. Like I do agree. I think Sharks a little bit settled. So are the Lions in a way. But I just think the Sharks are the better side. And at a pick-em game like this, and what Neil was saying about the previous results and what it means for the log, I think the Lions are going to battle. So I'll take the Sharks again as well this week. On points, quite interesting. Yeah, at 51, I'm as you guys know, I know Neil's big unders player. He'll tell me if I bet unders every single game of rugby, I'll be a winner. But I'm a natural overs player. But I also think maybe even under 51 in this game could be potentially in play. But I haven't confident on that. But if I was looking at points, maybe unders. But definitely Sharks.
Right. Well, what I suggest you do now is turn if you're watching live on YouTube, is turn your volume down, because I'm going to tell you, I like the Lions to win this game, and I don't like to go against the panel, but I fancy the Lions. I've watched them the last couple of weeks. I just feel they're coming to hand nicely. I like the fact, I was quite impressed with Creel last week. Willem Albert started to play some decent footy as well again. The boys are coming into their own. I do think it's going to be a cracking game. Chris, I certainly agree with you. I think it's fairly well priced. As I say, I actually thought the Lions would be slight underdogs for this game. So I'm not necessarily seeing a lot of betting value there, but I actually fancy the Lions to win in Joburg. For me, the Sharks also just one of those sides who tend not to put performances together. And I think they might be running into a Lions side that is slowly coming to the best. But after hearing you two guys, I'm certainly nowhere near as confident. I was hoping to be rubber stamping your selections with my Lions pick, but that's certainly not the case here. But I am leaning towards the Lions.
There's some injuries, isn't Satuka and Satoli, they might not be playing as well. So I think there's a little bit of disruptions there. And Satuka had a brilliant game last week. don't know too much about Van der Slace.
Is he the flanker?
Yeah, the number 7. Yeah,
he was brilliant. He was
yeah. So I think I think potentially that could be the difference. I'm trying to look at could it be won or lost in the reserves? I think it's pretty much the same. I just think you're right. I think maybe Lions show a bit more form, but I still think Sharks are the better side. So I'm gonna on that basis, taking their Bulls win into account, I'll give them the nod.
Yeah, and I certainly like Neil's point about Currie and Bosch, particularly at altitude. I've actually been to a live game there between the Lions and the Sharks before, where Bosch kicked over a couple of penalties from close to his own 10-meter line. So pretty good one. So anyway, we'll have a look. Anybody in the comments got any other views on that game? Let us know. And we're going to move on now to the European, the Heineken European Cup. And yeah, we've had a couple of games cancelled here due to COVID, but still a full house of fixtures, and we'll start off, and Chris, let me start with you. Once again, guys, we'll run through each game, but if you don't fancy anything, then by all means, just pass. And we got the Scarlets up against Toulon, first of all. And here we got the Scarlets underdogs. Chris, I'll start with you at +2.5.
Yeah, I'm getting it at 4 at the moment. And at this point, I would be leaning on the Scarlets. I was very big on Toulon in the beginning of the week, before the teams and weather came, but I believe at the moment it's still going to be an absolute, I think, monster hurricane coming through there tomorrow night. So I'm pretty much now averse to taking anything on handicaps and results. I'm going to look at the unders. Even if it's a 30, I'd probably play it because I can see like a 9-6 play. I mean, the last games with that weather in the lefty, there's no points. The last time these two played, I think it was on a mud field. It was under 20 points or close to 20. So I'm certainly looking at the unders, yeah. So I don't have the prices yet, but that's where I'll be going at that unders for this game.
Is that being played in Llanelli there, where Wales played Georgia?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And when Edinburgh played there, the same conditions, it was like 6-9, something like that. No, it was like 6-all. So I can pretty much see something going like that again.
Right. Well, Scarlets, as you say, you've got 4 points there. It was +2.5 here. Mark just pointing out the Scarlets have a long injury list, and Jason just confirming that it's the props that are injured. Before I bring Neil in, I'll bring up Peter Paul's comment because this is highly relevant. 33.5 points. That must be one of the lowest total points quotes I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, that's,
could even be 27.
Chris, fair enough. But it's hard. Don't you find, I mean, you're a natural
I know.
And it must be, when you see a line like this, is when I started playing Northern Hemisphere rugby a few years ago. I was also like you. I've become more of an unders punter, but I was a natural overs punter.
Me too, yeah.
And what happened was I used to, come December in the UK or in Europe, I used to see these lines of 36.5, 37.5, and I could not stop myself from going overs because you just don't see those lines in the Currie Cup and that. But of course, there's a good reason for it. The weather's normally terrible, and quite often the style of play as well. But let's see what Thoughts on Sports reckons about this game.
Yeah, Brent, I know I posted on the forum like earlier on that I was leaning towards the Scarlets, but I did reiterate that no punts were placed. It was just sort of my early thoughts on where I thought the games were placed. And just with team news and with weather news, I see that there's a 100% chance of precipitation and 47-kilometer winds in Khaneli. So if you have seen the Parque Scarlets, you know that it's not a very well protected stadium at all. So when the weather is bad, it really is bad. And just to hop on the last two Scarlet results in Khaneli, and these aren't particularly bad conditions. It's sort of chilly evening fixtures. They beat Zebra 18-17, and then they lost 3 points to 6 against Edinburgh. That's sort of in and around that. Well, one slid over the 33.5 margin, and that was significantly better conditions. So I'll definitely be having a crack at the under 33.5, and I can tell you that I'll also be taking the under 40.5 at sort of 4-10 in a double with another sort of a bigger unders play. If I can get another points line where I quite fancy it, I'll over the weekend I'll pop that in a double at a sort of a shade over evens. And just with regards to the outright cap, so you look at the Toulon team and it is quite star-studded, some big names. But once again, they aren't too familiar with playing in these sort of treacherous conditions. If they get on the wrong side of the whistle, Lee Halfpenny will sort of slot them over from wherever. So I would be quite careful on taking sort of a -3.5 towards Toulon. I think that if you haven't taken a side yet today, to rather stay out, have a small crack at maybe under 36.5 at 7-10. I think that should be quite a shoe-in. I would be careful about taking the unders tries market because in Khaneli, when the weather's awful, the wind howling, they won't really have a crack at the post, and even if they do, they can obviously sway to the left and to the right. So you will see probably quite a lot of driving. Obviously, Scarlet's missing their two front rankers, so a little bit nervous for the Scarlet's boys. But I just feel like back on home turf, I wouldn't be surprised to see Scarlet's cover. I'm not saying that with my money on the line here, but yeah. So points line the main play for me in this one.
Yeah, interesting. I often find with these games where low points are expected
broke some hearts last week.
Sorry, Chris?
No, I think there's a delay. Okay. Carry on.
Oh, sorry, man. It's probably the good old Wi-Fi game. But yeah, what I was just saying, in these games where low points is expected, I often find there's a little bit of a quicker start than you expect. In other words, one of the teams, because the conditions are generally best at the start of the game when the field's still in decent nick, and one of the teams will maybe grab an early try. So it could also be one to have a look at in-play options as well. Let's go on though, and Neil, I'll stick with you here. Wasps up against Montpellier, and here we got Wasps -8.5 points against Montpellier. Now this is the one, if I'm not mistaken, where there's been big line movement after the teams have been announced.
No, Brent, this is probably my strongest feel on the handicap all weekend, but obviously I'm in quite a favourable position. So I was quite quick to race onto the +16.5 as team news came out at 2 o'clock South African time. So for those who don't know, team news always comes out at midday in the obviously Europe day before the kickoff. So tomorrow at midday, all the team lines will come out for the Saturday fixtures. And as soon as I saw that Wasps were resting for England internationals, and Montpellier were bringing sort of their strongest side with Alex Zalski, the England international, Arturo Vincent, quality player. You got Caleb Timu, who's played a bit of Super Rugby with the Crusaders and the Brumbies, and Kobus Reinach on the bench. that I knew that they sort of were looking for points in this fixture. I saw that the handicap raced down from, I think it was 16.5. It sort of spent an hour or two at 11.5, and I see it's been pushed down to 7.5 now. So I'm quite happy with the position I'm in. If you do shop around, you still can get sort of 10.5, 11.5, and I think that is the way to go. Wasps have struggled significantly since the season's restarted, and I have attributed that to a couple of things. They're a big sort of spread the ball type side, and they do struggle to sort of dish out those sort of clinical performances in the wet when you need that sort of those tactical kicks to go your way, the set piece to go your way. They really do thrive with Jacob Umaga at 10 in the dry conditions, spreading the ball, creating sort of gaps outside them. So with that in mind, I really do feel like Montpellier are going for a victory, for an away victory here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this game settle by 3 or 4 points. I do think that Wasps will still edge it on home turf. But yeah, I still think that at 7.5, I'm more than happy to take Montpellier plus.
Right, Montpellier plus. There has been, as you say, big line movement. Chris, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, following that as well. I also missed the 16, but I still got it today actually at 9.5, which is fine by me. I also, same thing. I believe it's going to be a tight game. I believe Wasps should win it. Montpellier might, but certainly it's a closer than a 9-point game. And so I'm comfortable with taking a strike on that.
Okay, now if you're watching the show and you're thinking, gee, I wish I could have got some of that 16.5, Neil does post his bets, but particularly when he finds a good one like this one. He no doubt gets his own money down first because that's terribly important. And he does post it on the Good for the Game forum. So there's a link down below to the Good for the Game rugby thread. And you can subscribe to that and make sure you don't miss out on any of the action over the weekend. Chris, I'm going to stick with you for the next game. Are we talking a massive handicap here? Leinster, minus 1.5 against the Northampton Saints. So, I mean, reading into that, Northampton obviously expects it, if they haven't named it already, to name a weakened side. And I'm not sure that Leinster, there's anything like a weak Leinster side. They seem to have so much depth.
Yeah, I know. I mean, again, for me as a natural overs punter and a natural big high handicap avoider, this one for me now is not one I'm going to get involved in just yet either. I really have to see the Saints team news. Again, if anyone who does follow me know exactly what I feel for the Saints, and Leinster are great. They're an amazing team. I think they've named quite a decent team as well. But as much as I don't like the Saints, I can't see how it's a 42-point game though. Even though Saints don't do what they should, they're not clinical. They actually have the ability. It's like they play at 70-80% of their potential every week, and will have at least 2 or 3 brain farts that will cost them dearly. And so it is actually a matter of time where they'll put a performance together and they'll be pretty good. They probably should have won last week anyway, right? So 42 for me right now is far too high. I wouldn't be on the minus at all. I'd certainly, if I was going to start playing in this, I'll be on the plus. So I'm looking forward to the team news, and I'll probably be on a decently still high handicap, but not taking the minus. Yeah,
I'll be interested to see what Dave Cooney says here. He often comes on the show as a guest, and he watches it on Facebook. And I think he's the type of guy, if you have Leinster minus 81.5, he'll still have a little nibble on the minus. He's got a lot of faith in Leinster. I must say, I watched Leinster play last week, and I actually tweeted afterwards. I said, for me, it's Leinster and Exeter are going to contest this tournament. And certainly there was a few guys who came to me on Twitter, and rightly so, said you obviously missed some of the French teams playing, which I did. But I was terribly impressed with Leinster last week. Just before we ask Neil's opinion on this one, Neil pointing out that there's still plus 10.5 available in the Montpellier game, and that's at just shy of 15 to 20 at Sunbet. So if you do want to have that you can get the plus 10.5 still Montpellier. But Neil, let's come to you on this Leinster game. I mean, I backed Munster against Zebra a few weeks ago on a big handicap. I think that was 35.5. It's not fun taking a big minus like that, because the moment the other team scores, you've got your work cut out for you. But do you see this line moving at all?
Mute. Neil, you're on mute, I think.
I think, Neil, you might be on mute, although it's not showing up this side.
Maybe
just a sound issue there. I also can't hear Neil there.
Can't hear him.
So, Neil, what I'm going to suggest is maybe go out and come back in again, and we'll see if that works. For some reason, we can't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're slightly coming back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, that's better. Yes. Go for it, Neil.
not too sure about those technical difficulties. No, I just want to point out something when the difference between sort of a big handicap in Europe compared to the Southern Hemisphere is that when I sort of see a big sort of a 30-point region in the Southern Hemisphere, you always expect the sort of the underdog to have a points line of 13.5, just the nature of how the Southern Hemisphere rugby goes. So sort of if the Bulls are playing the Griquas at home, you'll get a high 20s touching 30 handicap, etc., etc. Or if the Crusaders are playing the Sunwolves. But with the difference between those sides, they always have the potential to sort of sneak in a try or two. But when Leinster play the Saints sort of in Ireland, if Leinster race out to a 14-point head start, the Saints can't go for sticks. So then the possibility of a donut, i.e. a zero scoreline, is always on the cards. So Saints have Chris Boyd, the head coach, has come out in the press conference and said that he is taking the youngsters through to Leinster, and Leinster have named, or we've got a bit of inside information, they have named a full strength side through Dave Cooney. He's obviously got some connections up there. So you have to realize that you're more betting on sort of a points line of over or under Saints 5.5, and then maybe Leinster 45, 46.5. So I probably won't be touching the handicap, but just for interest's sake, on a Saturday afternoon for me, I will be taking Saints to win to 0 at 2-1, because I can't see Saints going for sticks when they're 21-0 down. I think that'll just be embarrassing. And if they do, then credits to them. Go home, have a pie and a Coke, and sort of hop on the performance. But yeah, I think that's a better shout if you want a bit of beer money on the game. And yeah, I think that's weirdly enough huge handicap, but I think it is actually well priced. I don't think there's value either side of the line. I can see Saints sneaking a try with their academy graduates. I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar with the younger players. And Saints are in big trouble in the Premiership, so they know that they need to dig themselves out of a hole in that. They don't want to get relegated to the Championship next year. Big money on the line in that. So they will definitely be having their first eye on the Premiership. I think it returns in 2.5 weeks' time. So they are sending a weaker side. And if Saints get murdered in the set piece, it's going to be a very brutal game. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, Darren watching on Facebook reckons Leinster by 60 lad. And that's the thing with this Leinster side. They can easily put the team away by 60. Particularly, I agree with you, Neil. The team falls well behind. First of all, their heads drop, and secondly, they're going to just be going for the tries. So every chance they could be beaten 0.
I think you're right. And the 2 examples last week, that whole points game that you talk about, North and Southern Hemisphere. Look at last week's game with Exeter and Glasgow. You probably can look at a similar match there, and that was in horrendous conditions, and Exeter whipped up 42 points to nothing pretty easily. So, I can say, you can say that it could easily be, Leinster can score 50, 60 and win by that. I'm just, as my strategy and style, it just doesn't look right on my eye, even though you're onto something. I do agree the North is in play. And I know last week, Neil, we were on the unders. Gloucester jumped on a bit with that you as well, and they're bloody going for posts when they're 25 points down. It was a bit of a joke. Luckily, they didn't get over that 15 points, but that was still hard to watch, wasn't it? So I hope, if anyone else on the minus, I hope that doesn't happen to them.
Right, well, let's move on to the next game. And Neil, I'll go to you. Gloucester up against Ulster. And here we got Gloucester, the home team, are the underdogs at around about plus 7.5.
Yeah, Brent, this is quite an interesting one. I think, once again, sort of sound like a broken record here, but team news depending. I see that Gloucester have released Danny Cipriani midweek. I don't think that'll have too much impact on the sort of the opinions of the camp, because he hasn't been involved in sort of the last few game weeks. And one thing I do know about Ulster is that they're very poor on the road, especially sort of traveling to mainland England to face the English sides. Gloucester obviously quite far up north, very cold weather, so it won't be unfamiliar territories to Ulster. But when I see a plus 8.5, especially after Gloucester took a huge hiding, not that it wasn't unexpected after they sent out 15 academy players to Lyon over the weekend, I can't see that Ulster will beat this handicap. There are rumours, and I've heard some pretty confident rumours that Marcel Coetzee will be out for this fixture, which is obviously a huge loss for the Ulster men, and especially after Ulster lost their first game at home. With the nature how the Champions Cup is structured, you do need to win your home games to qualify. And Ulster got a very strong start to the Pro 14, so I do think that they will prioritise that and look to sort of secure that home bonus point in the Pro 14. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them sort of rotate a couple players and sort of that handicap to shape into about 4.5 after Gloucester name quite a strong side. So I'm quite happy to take 8.5. I think you can get 10.5 if you're a little bit unsure about the 8.5 at about 7 to 10, which is also a good run. So yeah, that's the bet for me.
Just to mention there before I bring Chris in on this game, you touch on team selection. So obviously these selections will be coming out tomorrow at 12 o'clock midday UK time. So I've had people say to me in the past, but why do you talk about the games even when there's no team selection? But exactly what you're doing now, you're trying to establish, you try and put yourself, you listen to rumors, but you're trying to effectively put yourself in the coach's position and try and almost second guess in terms of what team's going to be selected. And quite often you can get in a position where you can say, look, the handicap's right if the teams are sort of selected as expected, but there's a good chance this team will select a weaker one, and you can take that position early and even trade later and that sort of stuff. So although the teams aren't out, I can tell you from a betting point of view, sometimes those are the most exciting games to get involved in when you try and sort of find the value and see where the team selections are going to be, perhaps different to what the bookmakers think. Let's go to you though, Chris, for this one. Gloucester up against Ulster.
Yeah, won't spend too much time, just pretty much the same thoughts there. The handicap came out at like -3 originally for Ulster, and then it moved quite drastically out. So at that point in time, I would have been on Ulster actually, but then again, as you know, we do our research and rumors and all of that starts coming about. Definitely now the +8.5 is on one for me as well. Very strong on that as well. I think Gloucester, even the academy, even there were glimpses in that Leon game that Gloucester they played well, but I think they're going to have a stronger side. Exactly what Neil was saying, and I think that handicap's too high. I actually see it maybe even coming in a few more points as well.
Excellent. Well, I see a bit of a differing opinion from the guys there in the chat as well. And let's move on to the next one, Chris, and we'll stay with you. La Rochelle up against Bath. I think Bath let you down quite badly last week. I don't know how you feel about them after that.
No,
we got La Rochelle -14.5.
Yeah, and I was big on La Rochelle last week as well. And La Rochelle are one of my favorite teams, and in the French league and at home. I like Bath as well a lot, and again, Bath are like Wasp. They ended the last season so well and strong, and they're not doing it now. And Neil made some good points earlier as well. I think it relates to Bath as well. Like certain teams just thrive when it's a bit drier, and just don't when it's wetter. And Scarlets put in a monster performance last week. Bath were not there. They were put under the percentages there. I don't know if there's something wrong in that camp or not. I don't know if it's just because they don't have some of those key players. The Gamble for me is a key for them. Is a good balancer to that back line. I think Preston, as much as he's maybe one-dimensional, I think he provides the balance there for the Bath side, and I think that was pretty important. So in this game, again, it's a high handicap, and everything wants me to go La Rochelle with a big victory, but I'm not confident on anything in this game. But if I am going to go, I'm going to probably give Bath another shot. But I need to get closer to back to the team news and stuff. But I'm leaning towards I'll give Bath the benefit of the doubt to come back, and they need to win this game. And La Rochelle maybe, they beat it was Edinburgh after all, but I think Bath can take. I think they can cover that handicap.
Well, I've always been a big fan of La Rochelle myself. Interested, Neil, in what you think of this one?
No, Brent, firmly in the Bath camp for me. They suffered an absolute embarrassment at home, losing to Scarlets, to a sort of a weakened Scarlets side, especially after the big England internationals. I know that there are a couple of boys in the crowd might have had Bath and a multi there, which sort of scuppered the dreams. But yeah, I think that even if Bath rest one or two players, a 15.5 is big. Bath are a very proud nation, sort of proud club. They pride themselves on their big defense. If you look at their recent results, the only two big losses that they have suffered have been to the Exeter Chiefs. And it was more case of them not scoring enough points rather than conceding too many. So I just think that I can't see Bath scoring less than 10. And with that being said, I can't see sort of La Rochelle scoring more than 30. I know that, so I think that Bath will cover this. They've got a big forward pack, strong on defense. I think Priestland is going to be fit for this game. He'll definitely bring back a bit of a calm sense to that backline, that quite youthful backline that they do have. A couple of England internationals out wide, obviously quite exciting. Bath prefer in the dry when they can sort of unleash those backs. But yeah, at 15.5 for me, I think there's only one way to go, and that's definitely on the Bath plus. Even if Bath do rest a couple and bring in a couple of youngsters, I still think that plus is a runner. La Rochelle are a good side, but they do struggle to sort of beat those big minuses.
Let's see what Chris has to say coming in on this game here. 14.5 is too high. La Rochelle coach has mentioned they're forced to make some changes this week. So very much rubber stamping your two selections there of the Bath plus. Neil, we'll stay with you for the next game. It's Clermont up against Munster. I enjoyed I didn't see Clermont last week, but I did watch Munster play, and I certainly enjoyed the way they played. And here we got, though, the French team 8.5-point favourites.
No, Brent, once again, this was one where I jumped on, thanks to Son of a Punt for this one. I think Jordan and Andy both came out quite firing on the Munster plus 10.5. I managed to grab some at 8 to 10, but still at 8.5, I am quite interested in the Munster plus. I think that Munster are a great side at the moment. They seem to be quite well drilled. Although I know Henrik's not a big fan of Johan van Graan as a coach.
No, he's not.
and probably rightly so. But the fact of the matter is they have enough quality in the ranks to cover this. And I see that the weather is looking quite grim in Clermont this weekend, which obviously would play into the Irishmen's hands, sort of with their tactical astuteness. So yeah, I think that when you're getting more than a converted tries difference, Munster still firmly in the hunt of the playoff spots after last weekend's victory over Bath. I think that they will bring their full strength outfit, and I'm more than happy to take the plus 7.5. I do think that the Munster defense will sort of put the Clermont backs at bay for the game.
And Chris, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no strong thoughts. I'm not as strong on Munster as Neil is. They're not at all. I don't like them. Not my favorite team. However, yeah, trying to look at the matchup and what teams are going to put out in the situation of the comp and all of that put together. Yeah, you're right. The plus handicap looks very high. I was firmly on Clermont in the beginning of the week, but at the moment it's probably going to be a stay away game for me. But I'm not going Munster plus either.
Right, let's move on to the next game. We'll stick with you, Chris. Sale Sharks up against Edinburgh, and here we got the Sale Sharks minus 11.5.
Yeah, another one. Looking at the bet in, I probably will bet on it, and I haven't gone confidently on it yet because anyone again who knows me, not much time for Edinburgh either, especially away. I think Sale have their problems, but I think if Sale do put out their strongest side, and even against Edinburgh's strongest side, I think at home. I think Sale are going to squeeze some pressure there and come out with a good victory. But again, that's a lot of points again. So maybe, if Sale had put in were on a better run, I would definitely be confident on it. But because Sale are where they are at the moment with their team and what's going on, it's another handicap that I naturally, if I was betting, that's enough points for me to take. But it's another game that I'm going to stay away. Maybe looks like a nice, maybe an in-play opportunity for me. I would like to see how Edinburgh are shaping up against Sale during that game. And then I'll maybe do some in-play there.
Right. Neil, yourself on that game?
Yeah, Brent, this is probably the Champions Cup game I have the least opinion on, but I will sort of add a couple of thoughts on it. I think I've mentioned it before that Sale I liken them to the Stormers, where you always look at their team on paper and you're like, wow, this is a proper quality outfit. They get priced at those sort of high 8s, high 9s region, but they really do struggle to beat that minus handicap. I really struggle. It jogs my memory to think the last time Sale beat a firm minus handicap on their home turf. So yeah, Edinburgh aren't great on the road, but they do have enough quality in their side. So I think I would trade cautiously with this one. I don't see a lot of value in this.
Okay.
Right, and moving on, I haven't seen him on the show. Jules, I haven't seen him in the live chat, but the Dragons fan, but they're big underdogs here, Jules. If you watch the recording of the show and you're not watching live, they're playing up against Bordeaux and Neil, and here we got another massive handicap, 35.5 points.
Sure, Brent. I think this one's definitely down to team news. I actually watched the Dragons presser earlier before the show, and the coach was sort of mentioning a lot of words like pride, enthusiasm. So that for me generally indicates that he's going to be sending over sort of the young cavalry to do the business in Lyon. I can tell you what, that just does not work on sort of French territory. I think, if I do recall, it is sort of a slightly earlier kickoff for that fixture. So, yeah, I think that Lyon will rack up a couple of points. If I can get a points line of maybe about 39.5 for Lyon, I probably will look to overs on that, depending on weather and the Dragons team use. But just on that handicap, no real feel for me. I think there's a lot more value out there this weekend.
Chris, yourself?
No thoughts on this one. This is not one that I'll be getting involved in.
Okay, so swerve that one at Jules. Jules, you can let us know in the comments down below if you watch the show recorded, if you think the Dragons can challenge that handicap. Chris, we'll stick with you then and go to Harlequins up against Racing. And here we got Quins at home, the underdogs at +7.5.
Oh, good old Quins again. Here we go. At home, I'll take the Quins at plus, but it's not confidence. I'm probably, again, I'm not probably going to get involved in. Maybe potentially, again, look at team news. Maybe I'll teaser it out. I think Quins are a much stronger outfit at home. I'll just be interested to see what Racing team they bring. But that's probably nothing confident. If I do Harlequins on the plus, then.
Right, Neil, yourself this game?
I think anyone who knows me knows that I have a sort of a fanboy crush on Marcus Smith. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
If you watch enough of his games, everyone will join that club with me. He's a player. But just one comment on the Quins is that they do hate an away day in the wet, but thank goodness they're at home, and I see that the weather at the Stoop is good. So I think that they will beat the plus. And that's not coming from a biased point of view. I think that 8.5, you can get 9.5 at 8 to 10. I think that's actually a cracking play. Racing, once again, quality side, but they are French and they do hate the meals that they get served in the English hotels. So the Quinn plus 8.5, 9.5 for me will see my money.
If the weather is good, I think I'm liking possibly points in this game. I think dry games at Quins also have points. If I'm getting a decent mid-40s, early 40s, I might be looking at some points there and tries in that game. I think we'll see a bit of Sunday champagne rugby there.
Excellent. Well, just welcome to Dave, who's joined us on Facebook now. And Dave, I wanted to call out, you were saying you fancy in the Leinster game, Ryan Baird, is it Ryan Baird, B-A-R-D, to score a try at any time. That, of course, Dave, is assuming he's selected because, as Neil pointed out, you know absolutely nothing about the Leinster side that is going to be selected there. So Dave joining us on Facebook. Let's move on to the next game then, Neil. I think it's the last of the weekend as far as the Heineken Cup goes. And we've got Connacht up against the Bristol Bears.
No, Brent, once again, slightly sort of a team bias for me. I'm actually a big Bristol Bears supporter. Been to the stadium, been to the ground, got a jersey, the whole shebang. I think that once again, mentioned it before, when I get a choice game between two sides, I will definitely take a punt on this. So far I'm leaning the Bears. Pat Lam has reiterated the fact that Bristol back in the Champions Cup after 12 years. And it means a lot for them. They want to be sort of a side that competes regularly, makes the playoffs in this competition. And I think that especially after last week's game where they did get a bit of a shock from Clermont, in hindsight it wasn't too unexpected. It's with sort of the contrast or lack of contrast of styles, and that they both play very, very expansive rugby. But Clermont just had a bit more firepower to them. I think that I haven't actually seen the weather in Connacht, but Bristol obviously like to play that sort of quite expansive rugby. So if the weather is good, I think that the Bristol at 8 to 10 is a cracking play. Bristol, I think, are going to go quite full strength with Max Malins, Ben Earl, Callum Sheedy and co will be fit and firing for this game. I think that they add quite a lot of quality to them. I'm a bit wary of Bundy Aki starting straight back into the Connacht lineup, adding a bit more stability to that back line. But I still think that the Bears will have enough firepower to get over sort of a mid-level Irish side here.
Excellent. So it's the Bristol Bears for you. And Chris, finish us off on the Heineken before we take a look at the Challenge Cup.
Yeah. I think I'm also leaning on the Bristol camp here, and I agree. I think weather may play a part here. If it's a dry game, I think Bristol will win it probably comfortably. If it's a bit wetter and weather is worse, it could draw Connacht into it. I've loved Connacht this season in the Pro 14. This is a whole different league, a whole different level. So they've done well for me. Pro 14, they've come off a interesting, want to call it a big performance or lucky performance. I don't know what you want to call it against Rasta, and that might have taken a lot out of them as well. So I think Bristol iron this one out. I think Connacht might be in a little bit of strife here, even though I really love the Connacht team and their attitude and vigor. But yeah, I'll be on the Bristol side for this game.
Right. Well, that takes us to the end of the Champions Cup. There are some Challenge Cup matches, and I know the likes of CL Rugby and Brady have always warned us to be careful of the Challenge Cup, in particular with team selections. But we've got Friday's betting out. And Neil, I'll start with you. We got the first game. It's a choice game. Do you pronounce it Cust or Cust? Up against the Newcastle Falcons. And here we got 17-20 the pair.
No, Brent, I must say my pronunciation of the French sides does leave a lot to be desired. I think Frank and Louis will offer a bit of support from the sidelines there. I think it is pronounced Cust. But yeah, up against Newcastle, sort of a choice game. I'm siding with the away side here. I know that's probably a bit of a surprise, seeing that they are playing in France, but Cust are playing a very weakened side. A lot of B and C players. I think that Frank did highlight that there's a lot of under 21s in the mix. I see that Newcastle have welcomed back 18-test veteran as such, Mark Wilson, to the side, captaining the side. I'm a huge fan of Mark Wilson, absolute workhorse. If you've watched any Northern Hemisphere rugby and you've seen him play, you'll notice him on the field as a huge work rate, sort of that not entirely Peter Steph du Toit like, but you just notice him at every breakdown, making every tackle, just getting stuck in. But disappointed to see Gary Graham not in the lineup. I'm also a huge fan of him. But Newcastle have brought a couple of their first choice players back into the mix. And I think that they will be targeting some form of result in the Challenge Cup. So I think that at 8-10, I think that they will roll over the newcomers in this French outfit. Right.
Chris, any views on the Challenge Cup?
Yeah, on the same lines there as Neil. Definitely, I'll be betting on some Newcastle for this game for sure. Either as a choice game or a few on the plus. But I like more. I'll have a look at the caps tomorrow when also look at weather. But like I said, the team news, what we hear in, I think Falcons are going to have their tails up and get the win here.
Right, and then that's the other game that's priced up on Friday night. I see it's at 11 o'clock kickoff. I'm pretty sure we don't have it televised on Super Sport. And Chris, I'll start with you. Brive against the Italian side, Zebra. What do you think of this one? I've seen a very close game again.
No, this is a typical game that I will never go anywhere near. There's just not enough for me. Just on my also history, I can't get involved in these games strongly. If someone gives me a good punt, maybe I'll follow it, but I don't have any views on it.
Well, I've got a feeling someone's going to give you a good punt in about 5 seconds time here. Neil, you got your views on this one?
No, Brent. Once again, it does seem quite strange, but 2020 is a weird one that we are experiencing. But I'm going to be siding with Zebra to claim a rare victory away from home in France.
Brave man.
You can frame this. You can put it in the you can laminate it. You can put it on the Good for the Game forum in a flashing banner. But yeah, I am backing Zebra to get an away victory in France. I just think that there seems like they're turning quite a strong squad to Brive, and Brive have a top 14 fixture midweek next week, so they definitely got one eye on that. I know they have been struggling quite a lot in the comp so far, so they will be focusing on that relegation battle with not too much interest in Zebra with no crowds. I just think that Zebra could sort of produce a shock performance here. So at 8-10, yeah, I think Zebra is great value.
Right. Well, that brings us to the end of all of the rugby on the weekend. I don't know if there's any top 14 action, but I doubt anybody's had a look at that with all this quality Champions Cup rugby and that we got to look forward to. So it takes us on to the best bets section of our show. And Chris, let me start with you. What are your best bets for the weekend?
At the moment, I'm liking the Pumas points in the Currie Cup tomorrow, or even the general overs, and definitely liking the unders on the Scarlets. Those will be my strongest at the moment. And I'll probably under that, definitely let's go on the Bath and the Gloucester high handicaps. I think those will certainly be strong bets and should be covered.
Excellent. And just to mention, if you haven't subscribed yet, down below we've got a link to the Good for the Game newsletter. It comes out on Friday morning. It has our best bets and normally also throw in an accumulator from the show as well. Last week I actually couldn't think of anything in the rugby, so I went for a soccer bet. And isn't this typical? I actually looked at the form of Newcastle against West Brom, and I concluded that Newcastle should be odds on. I saw they were 12 to 10, 13 to 10, so I put them forward as the best bet. I looked 3 hours later to see if they'd shortened it to even money, and they'd gone out to 15 to 10. And as it turns out, I then Googled, and they were playing without half their team. But fortunately, it was one of those that they were still 15 to 10 favourites, and the bet actually arrived in the end. But I think I'm going to stay away from the soccer this weekend and stick to the rugby. But if you haven't subscribed yet, you can go down below and hit the subscribe button. Right, Neil, your best bets, please.
So I'm going to go with the Bath plus 15.5. I think you can get it at about 8 to 10. I'm going to go with Pumas over 21.5. And finally, I'm going to go with Munster plus 9.5 at 8 to 10. But also strong fancies. I think Montpellier will cover sort of that 8.5, 9.5 region. I really do think that. And then I do fancy Quins to cover the plus 10.5 at also about 15 to 20, 8 to 10, depending where you shop around.
So excellent. So those are the boys' best bets. I'm going to give you my bet as it stands at the moment. I do like the Pumas. I think they're still plus 10.5 at Hollywood. I expect that at some stage Hollywood are going to have to budge that handicap. If it's there in the morning, it may well be the best bet for the weekend. But the one that challenges it for me is actually Pumas over 21.5 points. I like that quite a lot. And then what I'll do is I'll listen to the show again tomorrow, and certainly the best bet section, and I'll work out some bets taking into account your guys' selections on the show. Chris, anything else from you?
Yeah, so there's some challenge cups on Sunday, which I'm quite liking at the moment. Bayonne Leicester. If the weather is good in France on Sunday afternoon, I'm thinking could be another like a Leon Gloucester game down there. I think you might see a lot of points flying. And I really like Irish to beat Pal. I think I'm quite strong on that. I think they're going to do the business at home on Sunday against them. So I'll be probably looking at those games hard on Sunday.
Excellent. So yeah, I suppose there's no betting out on those yet. They seem to come out very late.
Just looking at.
But yeah, no, fair enough. Have a view on it and be ready when the betting comes out to get involved and grab the value. So thanks for that, Chris. Chris, thanks very much. Great having you on the show. Neil, same to you. Always a pleasure to have your guys' opinions. I think we've unearthed hopefully some good bets, and let's hope it's going to be a profitable weekend. Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks obviously to everyone in the live chat. Thanks, lads.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thanks, boys. Enjoy it out there.
Thanks. That was Thoughts on Sports and at the Crow Tips. Great having your company here, and look forward to chatting to you probably next week. I think I'll probably keep the show going, even if we do a short one with the Currie Cup and that over the Boxing Day weekend. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the guys in the live chat. Have a great weekend.